Hi all, I'm Malika and today we are having Edwin Mata, a CEO and co-founder of Breaking. Thank you so much for coming, Edwin.
Hey, thank you very much for having me here. An absolute pleasure.
How did you first become interested in crypto?
Yeah, so what was my journey? I gotta say it was not through Bitcoin because I know a lot of people entered through that digital asset. I was in 2017 doing a project for another company around understanding how smart contracts could be applied to the legal sector. So that led me to trying to understand how blockchain was trying to revolutionize open ledgers, open information, and transparency. So I did a lot of study around how to apply smart contracts to the legal sector. So that's how I actually entered 2017.
Awesome. Yeah, you're right. Most of the people say that they had a friend who was like very annoying and telling them about Bitcoin. Yeah.
Yes, that is true.
What does decentralization mean?
I mean, it has to do with how information is processed and who has access for me, right? Because right now we live with central authorities owning all the data, the access points, information, and they just supply it to the rest based on their needs or selling a product or a service. And decentralization is anybody in any point of the world having access to that information, being able to understand what is happening at all time, full transparency, and no one being able to trade or mutate the information. So that's for me decentralization, just how pure the access becomes for absolutely everyone.
Thanks. And what is the opposite of decentralization for you?
Yeah, so authority, centralization, no, again, it's just a new perspective on things, right? So we've always been governed by states and different types of democracies or authorities and whatnot, and now we go with a thing that is quite new for everybody. It's kind of like we're all even, we're all the same again, and it's just because technology is in place. So the opposite of decentralization is just what we've been living all our lives, actually, just us working for somebody or having access to something under some terms that are dictated by them. And now here that big disruptor is that everything becomes accessible, everything becomes even free because information can even become free. And that is what for me is decentralization versus our current state, which is governed by centralized authorities.
And what do you think? Why do some organizations prefer a decentralized structure?
I mean, in the end, being able to create something in this new type of technology and approach, you can definitely start creating products and services. So on our end, for example, in Bricken, tokenization, breaking down of access, fractional ownership, reduce entry barriers, reduce tickets for investment and whatnot. So it's opportunity. So I believe that many of the centralization companies trying to do that is kind of like bridge the gap between certain things that are occurring right now. So between, I don't want to sound like the rich and the poor because it's not that, but I say like information that is captured by certain entities and not released to the rest now becomes accessible to everyone. So it's kind of like just reducing barriers, and that's providing a new product and service, which in the end is opportunity. Let's look at DeFi, becoming your own bank, becoming your own lender. So it's kind of like a new suite of products that are being created just because everybody is allowed to play under the same rules at the same time. So that's why I believe companies are jumping into the decentralization state.
What is a decentralized application or a DApp?
Yes. So dApps is because they run on the blockchain, right? So that's kind of like the idea behind the decentralized application. So usually the backend of the application is because it's built through smart contracts or in different blockchains according to the rules of even how the process they are involved, and that contrasts to having an application which is governed by a sole company, which information is in a stored database under their own rules and terms and conditions. And here it's run more freely. So a decentralized application is basically just the application running on blockchain. And if blockchain we understand as an open ledger, that means that the app is translating into open information or immutable information and all the characteristics of the blockchain itself.
Yeah, thank you. And how does decentralization increase security in blockchain systems?
Yes, so that's kind of like a question that I don't believe it's very correlated. With the information of security in a centralized way can be very high, and even in apps it's not necessarily the case. So it's kind of like how the company develops the information, the technology that is going to supply the product or service, no? So just because you use blockchain and it's immutable does not mean that it's 100% secure, right? Because you can have flaws in the contract, and then you have like lock vaults, which has occurred where money is lost in a breach or whatever. So I believe that the question is not if blockchain is more secure or versus completely centralized application. I think we have to go to good practices. Whoever is developing the code in absolutely any format should really have a standardized way to protect security, attacks, hacks. So I believe that's more of a just good practices and trying to understand that information of security management, it's super crucial for any company.
Yeah, you're totally right. How can decentralization impact data privacy?
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little bit again with sort of the same answer. A lot has been said about embedding public data or personal data on the chain. You don't necessarily have to do that. You can encrypt and whatnot, but it's also the same. Centralized authorities, so like Facebook has been hacked, banks have been hacked, and it's again kind of like, how can you protect data with good practices? And into the blockchain, yes, maybe you don't have to embed all your information onto the chain. There's various methodologies as to how you can protect that. But the importance lies again into the design of the product that you're trying to push into the market, just making sure that has the highest standards for you to protect personal data.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Edwin, what do you think? Which industries can benefit most from decentralization? For example, finance, media, or healthcare?
Yes, out of the three, I'm gonna go not healthcare again, because personal data has to be very, very minimalistic as to how data and who has access to the data. And when you're using an open ledger, it can get complicated. Next, media. I think there's a lot of opportunities here. For example, now music trying to become an NFT for compartmentalization and access, or social media, kind of like creators being able to monetize their own followers and whatnot. But for me, I may be because of Bricken tokenization. Finance sector, it's kind of like the gold mine. Like, just imagine all kind of stock markets or banks or lending mechanisms or finance instruments just being on blockchain. And it's not because of the technology. It's because using this, you become more optimized, everything becomes quicker, automatization happens. There's a lot of process in the financial sector that are very burdensome, such as you get paid in the bank, you have to review who paid, when to distribute back. There's a lot of things that when you run certain operations at the financial level, you encounter yourself with a lot of problems and maybe lack of transparency and review of processes. Using an open ledger, that's just one click. It can connect different ecosystems, understand different flows of how stable coins or future CBDCs run. And then you can even go and buy stocks directly into the tokenized stock market, have it in your wallet, go and collateralize such assets before open markets and whatnot. So here with that question, we can go for hours, but I'm just saying that really financial markets is going to be the biggest disruptor sector due to blockchain.
And can decentralization lead to reduced costs in certain systems?
Absolutely. Again, financial systems. Just so we are aware, I'm going to put an example. We were talking to a financial, not a bank, neobank. They were trying to understand how to liquidate asset settlements and reconciliation processes, which are very heavy burdensome for them. So when they put an asset into the market, there's a lot of players. So they have to review the retail, they have to review that they invest, they have to review the KYC, they have to do a lot of mechanisms take place when trying to put assets into the market from an institutional level. So we were trying to establish how the tokenization version of it can reduce costs. And they were like, yeah, but the blockchain and everything. I was like, I'm not talking about technology. I'm talking to cost efficiency. So we digest the table of their current kind of like adjusted costs for deploying an asset and getting retail to jump on board. And then we use it with the tokenized version. And with 3 clicks, they could do what hours and different manpower had to do. So they were like, we never understood that there was a cost efficiency in what you guys were creating. So they were shocked. And this is why we see now JP Morgan running bonds with BlackRock chain. They have already tested. We see banks trying to understand the tokenized versions of their debt issuance or their assets and whatnot. And it all goes because it's just more cost efficient.
Totally. Thank you. And why might decentralization be inefficient in situations requiring quick and coordinated responses?
Yes. So I mean, this is kind of like, should you use the latest tech in absolutely every product and service? And the answer is no. You have to really study if what you're trying to do, there's a benefit on it. So we were seeing the past couple of years craziness around blockchain, just like everything had to be blockchain, right? So Uber, the blockchain version, Airbnb, the blockchain version, and it does not have to be like that. So it's a different tech with different set of rules and different characteristics. So for your answer, I don't want to go like into a specific sector, but just establish that not everything has to run on chain. It has to make sense. For me, financial instruments do. But for example, the health sector, I don't see it. I'm not an expert, but I don't see it so much. And other things, consumer app at the marketplace, for example, would you run an Amazon on blockchain? I don't think there's a need. So it's more about making a good study to see if what you're trying to do improves overall what you're trying to change.
Great answer. And Edwin, how can bad actors misuse decentralized systems?
Yeah, same way they can misuse centralized systems, right? Whoever wants to be a bad actor and wants to hack or take advantage of anything. For example, me as a consumer, sometimes I do get a lot of SMS from bank institutions, kind of like, hey, we need you to change your PIN, and then it's like my normal bank, but I know it's a phishing attempt. And we have those phishing attempts the same way in, hey, connect your wallet because you have to sign in, and it's a drag of all your funds. So it's kind of like, we just have hackers in Web 2 as we have hackers in Web 3, or as we have offline hackers, people just roaming out in the streets with a knife or whatever, right? So bad actors will always exist, and it's not that they're more here, they're the same. I don't know where it's more, but one is always bad. So we have to educate, at least on our sector, how the good practices as a consumer, what you have to do, verify authenticity of the link, of authenticity of who you're talking. So I do believe there's a lot of education that needs to happen, but not necessarily this is kind of like the most hackable or scammable sector. It is not.
Yeah, totally agree. And do decentralized platforms contribute to job losses, especially in sectors reliant on intermediaries?
Yes. This is a great question. I like it a lot because it seems like always when there's a new tech or a new evolution or a revolution, all jobs get lost, right? There's a constant fear, for example, with AI. I'm a lawyer, by the way. So there was a lot of things like, oh, we don't need lawyers anymore. I'm a lawyer and I use ChatGPT proudly, and it has optimized my process and writing. It's not that it replaces, because the interaction of the know-how throughout the years, sometimes it's not as mechanical or as a code. So it's all about using the tech. So, I mean, if we think, for example, like coal trains, it's like, oh, but what about the coal miners that got out of there? Oh, what about the guy running the train? Oh, and then it became electric. But then there's an engineer in the back, there's a constructor, there's a reviewer, there's even a developers now running, working on the trains. It just got innovated and it just got updated. So I think that jobs need to be updated always when there's a revolution, but the change might be drastic, but if not. But also it is to the end user and consumer or end job to always try to use this new tech to your advantage. Instead of saying, I'm going to be replaced, say that new technology, I am going to understand how to best use it. So I just become more efficient, more optimized. And instead of me being fear that I'm going to be changed, loving the fact that I'm just going to become better.
Yeah, thank you. And speaking about scams and everything, what do you think? How should we fight against fraud and scams in decentralized systems?
Yeah, so I think with the wallet, there's a couple of great innovations coming up, such as account abstraction. There's some insurance players that I've talked to that they want to see how they can even insure certain signatures when somebody uses their wallet. We're now getting better at notifying pre-connection to the wallet, such as receiving a notification. It's like, hey, if you sign this signature, you are doing this and that. So for right now, I will say that user experience, it's crucial because there's a lot of things that are too technical for the average user. Even for me, sometimes I kind of feel lost And that's kind of like what we have to figure out is how to onboard users without having that kind of like doubt feeling. And the second one is education. There's nothing better than really encouraging people to understand where they're going, how they're doing it. I mean, in the end, what is it, like a 10-minute course can save you thousands of euros. It's something as stupid as that. Just learn. There's so much information in there. Don't go and say like, I'm gonna do it all in. That's never worked. So give 10 minutes of your life for something that you're not gonna regret later.
Thank you. Such a great advice. What challenges do decentralized projects or platforms face in legal recognition?
This is a two-sided question because during the last couple of months, we have witnessed the development of different regulations across the globe on trying to explain better or trying to regulate digital assets, how they have to be issued, how they have to be managed. So regulation is actually getting updated to understand the evolution that is happening when you digitize and put assets on chain. So that was a huge milestone here in Europe. For example, we have now the possibility of creating stock markets that are going to be tokenized. We have the framework to issue utility tokens. So a lot of innovation is happening. I'm not just in Europe. There's other countries that are actively pursuing how to do this. Japan stated, for example, that most likely next year companies could get funded via cryptocurrency. So there's huge updates. On the bad side is that certain negative events that have occurred during the past 2 years have established that everything that runs on chain, it's kind of like or illegal or illegit, or it's kind of like the wild west, right? So the constant fight, it's kind of like, while jurisdiction is updating and we are at a better state and more solid than we were a couple of years ago, we still have to fight with the negative media. So it's kind of like we are at the best possible point for us to use technology and blockchain with a jurisdiction and legislation and more understanding from even certain governmental organizations. But at the same time, media is constantly attacking. So it's kind of like we have to figure out how to match the possibilities that are currently being developed by jurisdiction and certain countries to the bad media that is being thrown, because let's not lie, everything that is bad sells better. So that's going to be an interesting 2024.
Yeah, totally. And speaking about media, what resources or tools do you rely on to stay informed about the decentralization and the crypto market in general?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, I was heavily relying on Twitter, but crypto Twitter just became too chaotic. Too many bad actors trying to make a quick buck, too much KOLs or influencers trying to do whatever they needed to do. So that was a shame because you have live news or live opinions fluent, like, because Twitter used to be a lot like that until it just became too much drama, so to speak. So we have to go and rely to the great journalists. But then we have events like the one that happened, like the ETF got confirmed by a certain outlet that made it. So it's kind of like, who can you believe? So the question is multiple sources. I have to rely on multiple sources always. So when one outlet does, maybe you check on Twitter, maybe you check on LinkedIn, maybe you check some, especially when there's a huge announcement or a huge update on the news. So right now, unluckily for all of us, we cannot just rely on one source for information.
What do you think? When will the market go up?
Oh, wow. Yes, this is not a financial advice. Please don't. Just kidding on that. I think 2024. I wouldn't say early. I wouldn't even say at the halving. I will say more around end of Q3, Q4. There's an exhaustion right now on the markets due to all the selling pressures that have occurred. So there's got to be a point where we see what is the true floor price of the thing. I think right now in the cryptocurrency market, we've seen the floor of BTC. I think we've seen the floor of many alts. So I think it's just about consolidation during the probably next year. Halving is going to have a lot to say about how it happens, but I still believe that there's still going to be an exhaustion post-halving, and hopefully so Q3, Q4, we see a better market throughout, but not just talking crypto, because stock markets have also suffered a lot. A lot of companies that were massively funded during COVID, a lot of money was printed during COVID across the globe, so there's an inflation throughout. We need to really reduce that kind of like cash flow that was created out of thin air, and that's going to be a complicated situation. But hopefully, during the next couple of months, we see some changes on the macro and for the better of everyone.
Yeah, such a positive opinion. Thank you so much, Edwin, for being here. It was such an interesting and informative conversation.
Thank you very much for your invite, and yeah, really appreciate the questions. Thank you very much for that.